So Nabal was in the wilderness. And all this wealth that he got because of he's connected to Caleb. The blessings of Caleb is flowing. And all of a sudden, Nabal didn't even recognize where the blessings coming from, but he was self-centered, he was prideful, he was thoughtlessness, and that he thinks it's my water, my bread, my wine, my sheep, and I'm not willing to share with anyone. And God says, the reason God blessed you in the wilderness is to show you, to humble you. But Nabal was totally contrary to being humble. And sometimes we go through in life, not recognizing in seasons, we forget about who is behind our blessings. Sometimes we all fall into the similar trap that we don't know who is actually really causing us to go through in life to obtain what we have obtained. And I encourage you, church, that pause in this season and look back at the entire year and see what God did for you. And let's not take for granted what God did for us. Let's give God all the glory, because God gets all the glory. Can somebody give the Lord a round of applause? Because it's important. I know you guys are smarter people. I'm actually talking to a choir here. You know, guys, you guys do great. You guys do amazing being grateful to God and being thoughtful to God. And because of your generosity, we're able to take care of the kids in India. We're able to feed the pastors that are absolutely poor. We're able to partner with Central America in Asia to help some of the pastors because of you guys doing it. And so I'm grateful. But it's important that we can reflect on the stories like this so that we will never allow ourselves to pathway where we can be like Nabal and fall into the trap. So our story continues. We have an incredible character that's coming in. That's where my real emphasis is. So I kind of lay the foundation, but now I'm getting into much important content of this story. Has so much details. Sometimes when we read the Old Testament, we browse through it. We don't really pause and look at these details. This wicked man married to a woman called Abigail. Abigail, when I think about Abigail, I think about two things. Abigail has beauty and brains. She has such an intelligent woman. She was living at the time beyond our generation. She was thinking at the time way ahead of the entire generation was thinking. She's so brilliant. She's intelligent. She's brave. And she's focused. She's reliable. And yet, Nabal is absolutely contrast to this woman called Abigail. So what happened when the man heard what Nabal told man, that I'm not going to share my bread, I'm not going to share my water, I'm not going to share my sheep, go tell that guy, I don't care whoever thinks he is. So now the men walked up to David and they told David, this is exactly what Nabal said. And now, David being a warrior, David being a frustrator, David being in a wilderness. I don't know if you ever been in a wilderness so long that you're begging for bread, and at the same time you're anointed, and at the same time you're a warrior, and you can't even feed your 400 men. There's so much frustration David was carrying at the time. When he heard the bad news, he said, all right, guys, pick up the swords. We're going to the town. We're going to take care of this right now. So 400 men coming as a snake on the hills, and they gird up their swords, and they're ready to take down this evil guy in one day. And David put his mind together. Testosterone levels are so high, his eyebrows are coming closer, his nose is quivering, his chin is getting hard. He's ready for this thing, because I'm tired of your crap that I've been so good to you. Now you turn out to show me evil. Let me show you what the anointing of the Lord looks like, and I'm going to come your way to show you. And David was on a mission and walking his way to get this guy down. And the entire village is going to be wiped out with the 400 strong men who are fighters. And that's what's happening in this time. And one of the servants, and I like people who see the good and evil and the justice, one of the servants ran to Abigail Says, ma'am, let me tell you something. This man from David came and talked to your husband. Your husband mistreated them so bad. He didn't even serve water. He didn't even give them a coffee. He told them, like, get out of here. I'm not going to give you nothing. And the servant told Abigail, listen, I was there when they protected our sheep. I was there when they protected our fields. These men are good men. These men are great men. We need to be doing something. And I'm so fearful right now. The disaster is coming to our household, your household. When Abigail, who realized the disaster is on her way, she didn't sit back and do a fasting prayer. She didn't sit back and say, I don't know what to do. But she is the woman with the brains and beauty. And she knows what to do. And she said, all right, let's donkey up everything. I want to get all the things they need, more than enough. And they have so much food, one donkey after another donkey, like a 10-man servants and donkey. You can picture this. All these donkeys are lined up with all kinds of food, wine and drinks and wheat and bread and everything. So much. And she said, I want you guys to go first and I'll be behind. She knows how to reach a man who are so mad and angry and ready to take down the town. He sends them food first. And she was coming on a donkey. And she did something so powerful. Now, I'm going to slow down so that we don't lose details in this text. Because this is what I call a pivoting movements of a spiritual destiny. That people can change their destinies just with a few thoughts, and immediately you get a different kind of outcome that you don't even expect. This woman went so far, it shocked me the way she worded certain things. I can only imagine who taught her these things. I can only imagine who was her teacher was, because there was no Jesus back there. There was no rabbis. They were in the wilderness. But this beautiful woman has so much to show us. It'll take us even a series to do this. Watch this. She was gratitude and generosity. She was gratitude and 1 Samuel 25, 23 to 24. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her horse, her donkey, and bowed down low before him. And she fell at his feet and started talking. Now, you're talking about Abigail, who is the richest woman. David at this time he doesn't have a dime. He was in the wilderness, barely surviving, looking for next meal. And this rich woman who has all the wealth and who married to a richest man walks in, saw David, and she gets off the donkey, bows low before him, and she fell at his feet, and she starts speaking into potential that David has. Now, up until David's life, I feel like he has no real direction. He was wandering in wilderness as Jewish people were. But the one woman was able to see the potential in a broken man, and she speaks life into him in a way that no other woman can speak. Only Abigail can do it. So I'm going to go slow, look at all these details. This is how she starts. I accept all blame in this matter, my Lord. By the way, Abigail did not do anything wrong. It was her husband. But this woman has such an incredible wisdom. She said, I accept all blame in this matter. Now, you can only imagine what David is thinking through. His testosterone levels are so high. He's like, who is this woman? Why she's... And all of a sudden, she probably caught off guard. I mean, he was caught off guard by the way she bows down before him. He probably backed up. It's like, what's going on here? And this woman will be laser focused into looking to David's life, speaks the potential of David. And watch this. She fell at his feet, said, verse 25 too, I'm going to browse through and read some details. Pardon your servant, my Lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my Lord, to the wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool. And folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I'm like, wait a minute. You are a rich woman. You don't call David servant. But look at the language that she has. As for me, your servant, I did not see men my Lord sent. And now, my Lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord kept you from the bloodshed. Watch this, the language she's using. Now, he's mad. He's ready to take a judgment. He's ready for justice. Now she's going to persuade him. This is so important, woman. If you really understand how to get man, there is the recipe right there. And men, even though we know you're doing the thing, like you think, some people will say it's a manipulation. I don't say it's a manipulation. They just know how to get to men really well. Smart women know how to get to men really well. Wise women know how to get to men really well. When my wife says, well, I know you can pick up the trash with your finger because you got a good biceps. I know she's pulling that card, but I'm still going to do it because you just know how to get me into it. And Abigail uses a similar strategy by the Spirit of God. And watch this, the language she has from the shed blood, from everything yourself, your own hands, may your enemies. Now she goes even further to say, I know who you are. I know what you're capable of. And I also know your future potential. I also know where God is leading you. And your enemies and all who are intent to harming you, my Lord, be like Nabal. Which woman out there can compare other men and lift him up so high and put her husband back in a bozo place? And she said, all your enemies and all are intent to harm you, my Lord, be like Nabal. Don't worry about it. Nabal, your enemies will be like Nabal. And let this gift which servant brought to my Lord be given to the men who follow you. And now she's like, oh, I'm here not only giving you gift, not only telling you how great you are, how mighty you are. Please allow these gifts to go to your men so your men can eat. And she goes on to say something so incredible and something so powerful that we cannot ignore this. This is in Old Testament, y'all, not in the New Testament. Watch this. Please forgive your servants' presumptions. And the Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord. What? Now she went even further. She's talking to a man and his potential that was hidden in him, and she's extracting it. Imagine you talk to your man like that. Imagine you talk to your male child like that. Instead of talking you stupid, instead of talking you dumb, instead of talking you good for nothing. But this woman could able to see future and call the future in the moment of madness. And that to me is what I say. She's got the brains and the beauty. And she said, please forgive your servants' presumptions, and the Lord your God will certainly, not just maybe, certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you. Wow, wait a minute. If you read David's life, there's so many wrongdoings in him. But this woman only sees by faith. Imagine if your wife, you see your husband by faith in this lens and say, I know I'm only going to focus on good, not the evil, and promote that good and extend that good and push that good. And she said, because you fight the Lord's battle, no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you like your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of living by the Lord your God. It's incredible how she's talking to a man who is ready to destroy her own husband. Now she even does a very sneaky and a vigilant and super wise. She takes this man into when he was a boy. Like literally she knew how to tap into a man and take him to a boyhood and let him have the images of his boyhood so that his heart will change. Watch this. But the lives of your enemies will be hurled away as from the pocket of a sling. You remember sling that he was using? When he was a 14 years old boy, he killed the lion, he killed the bear, he killed the giant with the sling. So she probably heard that story somewhere. And she took the story. And it's important when you hear the story, don't hear the negative part of it. Hear the good part so you can reuse that on the people and they will trust you. They know you know about themselves. And nobody knew about the sling story except the Abigail in the Old Testament. And the Abigail knew how to use that back to David to bring him back into the days where he stood strong in the face of the giants. He stood strong in the face of the lion and the bear. And now may I tell you, David actually lost his godliness at this moment because he's ready to annihilate Nabal's entire village with the 400 men. But this one woman could stop 400 testosterone levels. Some of y'all got that. One woman. I love this kind of woman. I love when women are smart and beautiful. This is so brilliant how she uses a pocket of a sling. Now you can only imagine David was like, he's going back to the age where he was 14 years old man. Like, wow, you hit the nerve, girl. Who are you? Now, I strongly felt at that moment he probably thought, I wish she could be my wife. I don't know. But no woman has spoken to him. And all these men, they left their wives and staying here in the wilderness. And she goes on to say, when the Lord has fulfilled my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his consciousness the staggering burden of needless bloodshed. Love that. So what she's saying is, now I know where you're going. I see you're going to be a mighty king. I see you're going to be a great leader. Because you're going to be a great leader, don't let this simple, stupid thing sit on your consciousness rest of your life. No, you don't even deserve his blood. Yeah, you got to say wow for that, for sure. She knows you don't deserve his blood. See, the bloodshed and having avenged himself, when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant. This woman knew how to talk to a man who have the authority, who have the courage to do things different. And she spoke into David's potential. She took David from a mean man to a child and bringing him back to the place and took him so far away when he's seated on the throne, how he should feel like about this. Imagine if women talks to men like this. And I promise you, men's life will be transformed. If every woman will become like Abigail, using the brains, not the emotion. Women are organically opens the tap of emotion before the brains. But when woman uses the brain, they're smarter than men. But most women will always use the emotion to try to be even with you. Like, you treat me that way, I'm going to treat you this way. You call me names, I'm going to call you names. Oh, well, you didn't buy the grocery, I'm not going to cook nothing. The moment when your thoughts are above your husband's thoughts, you lose the battle. Look at her posture was. She got off the donkey. And I know we don't do that. That's kind of weird nowadays. If you bow on somebody else's feet, it's kind of weird. But she got off the donkey and she low before him and fell at his feet and then looks at him, gives him a sermon that changed David's life forever. David was looking for this living waters in the middle of wilderness. I strongly believe God left David in the wilderness for him to hear this good news. And this is how his life evolved. We look at people who built a great legacy, But behind a great legacy, this smart woman who stood and speaking into their ears life and potential and dynasty and destiny. No wonder why this man will accomplish the things that normal men can accomplish in a way that David was able to go forward in an incredible way. And watch this. All of a sudden, David found a church service in the middle of the wilderness. Without a worship team, no nothing. Watch this. And David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord." 30 minutes ago, he was ready to annihilate Abigail and Nabal, everybody. And all of a sudden, David became a spiritual because one woman's wisdom changed the trajectory of David, moving from flesh into spirit. And it says, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment." Can somebody say good judgment? "And keeping me from bloodshed." I love that. The true woman will keep her husband from bloodshed. "And this day, and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord lives, Lord God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonged to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." And Nabal had thousands of employees, by the way. By the daybreak. Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." And when Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of the king. And he was in a high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. She's so smart. You don't talk to your man when he's drunk, because he's stupid when he's drunk, because there's no way you're going to extract wisdom. And she's so smart. She's like, "Nabal, go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow." And she woke up tomorrow morning and she said, so she told him nothing at all until the daybreak. Then in the morning when Nabal was sober, she told him all these things. And his heart failed and he became like a stone. About 10 days later from that event, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. And the story goes on. When David heard that Nabal dead, and you know what Nabal did, what David did? "Praise be to the Lord. This is my opportunity. Good Lord. I'm not going to let that good-looking, smart woman go." And a young man, this is advice for you. If you find brains and beauty, don't question, just get her in. Get her in, rope her in right away. Do whichever you got to go to debt for her. It's okay. You can go back and pay back later. Because you can't. Look at David. David calls her praise be to the Lord. She just lost her husband. But David looks at it a different way. So praise be to the Lord. And who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with a contempt. Isn't it amazing? When you follow good judgment, when you do the right thing, God will fight your battles. That's where we got to give the Lord a round of applause. We need a people who lead us in a right way so that God can fight our battles. And he kept his servant from doing wrong, and he brought Nabal's wrongdoing, and then he said, "Well, all right, somebody go pick up Abigail." And Abigail says, "I'm happily ready to be married." And ever after they're happily married. That's not in the Bible, but literally that's what happened. So that's the story that you can look at it and how God helps us to understand a few things. Now, it is incredible. This was in the Old Testament. Jesus was not even in the picture. But if we can relate some characters here in a spiritual connection, so reference points, Abigail represents Jesus here. Because, she was living beyond her generation at the time. Nabal was joke and bozo. David was doing at the kingdom time, they were living in an Old Testament covenant. So whatever David was doing is meaningful for him. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand. and heart for a heart would take it down. He was playing the game because that game was introduced by Moses. But Abigail passed Nabal, passed David, the covenant, old covenant, and enter into new covenant in old covenant. That's brilliance. She somehow, I still don't know where she got that wisdom to put these things in a package deal that all of a sudden we can reflect back from this this story that Jesus was sent from heaven to the broken people like you and I. Like we represent Nabal, that we're absolutely selfish and we don't care for other people. Now Jesus comes to this earth and walks up to the door and gets on the cross, and he told the Father, forgive them. I want you to forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. I'm going to intercede for you. You're amazing. You're awesome. Would you please take it? And Abigail did the same thing as Jesus did. Can somebody make some noise in the house of God? Whenever you decide to stand in the gap, and God sees that and gives her an incredible opportunity for her to be in the book of 2 Samuel and to be an incredible name. There's so many young ladies' names I've seen as Abigail because she has both brains and beauty. So I want to ask you to ask God this. Ask God to change your heart, trading unthankfulness and selfishness for being thankful and humble and generous. Even though she's been so rich, she humbled herself. And she decided to do the right thing and bring the justice. And then she didn't spoke to a man in a way that everybody will speak, but she spoke into a man to make man reach his potential and destiny. So before you decide, think about how it might affect others. Being thoughtfulness is like being someone else's shoe, and being kind even when it's a bit hard is what God calls us to do. Now I know David was doing what he was doing at the time, but Abigail did something so remarkable that we can't even fathom that she could be able to do at the time. She was living way ahead of the generations. But Peter also gives us similar in the New Testament. And Peter says, 1 Peter 3, 9 and 11, do not repay evil with evil. Because we're trying to be even with other people. You made me this way, I'm going to make you that way. You slap on me, I'm going to slap on you. Jesus said, if somebody slaps on one cheek, turn the other cheek. And Peter says, do not repay evil with the evil, insult with the insult. On the contrary, repay evil with the blessing. Abigail is the best example. She could see the evil 400 men ready to take down her husband and everybody. And she brought a blessing. She brought a blessing because to this you are called so that you might inherit a blessing. How many of us, we want blessing, but we don't do the right thing to obtain blessing? Because when you do the right thing, you don't need to beg for blessing. Blessings will chase you. Can somebody give the Lord a round of applause?